Hello everyone and welcome to SUNUP. I'm Lyndall Stout. We begin today with research on a sorghum pest that's relatively new to Oklahoma, the sugarcane aphid. SUNUP's Dave Deacon has more.
The sugarcane aphid problem in Oklahoma has been probably the key pest that we've had to deal with since 2014.
People were scared to death because they didn't know what hit them.
Neighbors said, hey, we've got sugarcane aphid. And we said, well, what is that? Well, it sounds like it should only be in sugarcane.
It kind of came on us like gangbusters. We weren't prepared for it. We never seen anything quite like it.
Rude awakening when it came in, something that just we were not prepared for and was detrimental to our crop.
We were scrambling and we got together with a team here at Oklahoma State and worked with the sorghum checkoff program and with the USDA NIFA program to put together kind of a longer term strategy to try and come up with answers through research.
When we started the test over here, there was not much information about sugarcane aphid.
When you're trying to catch a bandit, you want to track them back to the original crime scene. Oklahoma State University researchers had the perfect place to find sugarcane aphid answers. The Wes Watkins Agricultural Research and Extension Center near Lane.
The first time that sugarcane aphid was discovered was in Bryan County in the same area. So we assumed that if we planned everything down here, this would be the port of entry. And we were right. For the past 4 years, we have had all of our trials down here, and you bet your bottom dollar that we get insects.
So what I do is I sample a whole lot, and then we put it into a statistical model.
Jess has put a lot of Oklahoma miles on her car, checking sorghum fields in every corner of the state, including the Bolé sorghum in Noble County. So far, the research that she has helped collect has yielded information that is helping producers stay in front of this aphid and the damage that it causes.
We're going to have to do a whole lot of sampling before we can, with confidence, estimate their population density within a field.
I'm feeling a little more confident now that we've got answers, or at least we can provide suggestions and answers to producers so that they can more effectively manage the sugarcane aphid.
With the sugarcane aphid, a lot of people and producers in our area have eliminated it from the rotation because of that pest nuisance. And so I think maybe we'll see some people go back to it with some of the research that Oklahoma State's done.
We're joined now by Extension entomologist Tom Royer. And Tom, it looks like the research team accomplished quite a bit in a short amount of time.
We did. There was a lot of pressure on us, obviously, with the aphid coming in so heavy and fast. The producers needed answers right away, and so we started just trying to prioritize what we thought were the most important things. We're trying to identify what insecticides work the best, what varieties of sorghum could tolerate the aphid, and then we were able to start, as other questions came up, we were able to try and answer some of those questions, but we just had to get some of those baseline things done first.
Where are we this year? What's kind of the landscape, if you will?
We've had about 3 years of looking at insecticide products, and we're hoping that maybe some of the companies will, that we found maybe some of their products work pretty well, that they'll pursue registration, but we have at least identified a couple products that work pretty well. We've definitely worked a lot on identifying varieties and sorghum lines that are tolerant to the aphid, and so we're a lot more comfortable with that, and I think the producers in the state have switched over to a lot of those that they know are going to be less susceptible to the aphid. So now we're getting into some other things. You know, down south it was really important for them to look at insecticide seed treatments. We didn't know if they would work up here, and so after a couple of years it's like, well, let's take a look and see if they benefit our producers up here. And so we've done that. Then we started getting questions from some of the producers of forage sorghum, that stuff that grows this tall, and they don't have as much support for getting research. So we are at least trying to look at how those forage varieties tolerate the aphid and how to control it. One of the things that's for us is important is we know that getting good thorough coverage to the crop is important for controlling the aphids, and it's a much more of a challenge with forage sorghum as it is with short grain sorghum like this. So we're going to start looking at that. We actually we actually have a research project looking at that this year.
So this will, the questions will just evolve, and the research will follow suit?
Yes, yes. We're all in the business of answering questions that producers generate and trying to come up with answers for them and solutions. This January, we're going to be meeting in in St. Louis from all the Southeast entomologists, and we'll get together and exchange ideas and exchange what we learned this year.
Well, as you come up with solutions, of course, we're happy to pass it along to the producers of Oklahoma. Good. Tom, thanks for your time today.
Good morning, everyone. One more week with me at the helm. Al's still gone. I'm sure everybody's anxious for Al to come back. But until then, you're still my captive audience. And of course, we're going to start out, as usual, with the drought monitor report. So let's take a look at the map and see what we have. Well, what we have is pretty simple. We have a drought that continues to grow during the summer months with the heat and the diminished precipitation. We do see that drought strengthening across far west central Oklahoma and also central up into northwestern Oklahoma. So those are two areas, of course, to look at. And those areas in yellow, the abnormally dry conditions, those are areas where drought is trying to develop. So we need some rain, of course, as always, and those are the areas we're going to keep watching. And again, we show this about every week, but the departure from normal for the last 60 days, we can see those areas in the darker orange and red where the deficits are continuing to grow from 4 to nearly 7 inches across parts of central Oklahoma, around 4 inches out in far west central, and also up in north central Oklahoma. Last week we showed you the mesonet soil moisture. Now these maps show the extent of topsoil and subsoil short or very short of moisture according to the USDA. And as you can see, 61% of the topsoils in Oklahoma considered short or very short of moisture. That's easily reflected also in the Mesonet data. Now the subsoil, that's up to 67% short or very short of moisture. So that's continued to increase as we've gone through the summer. Again, that's from the USDA, generally from your local FSA, NRCS, and other folks such as that in your counties. So if we take a look at the precipitation map, we see increased odds of above normal precipitation amounts for that 3-month period across central, south central and southeastern Oklahoma, a little bit lesser up into the northwestern and north central and eastern parts of the state. But better chances of above normal precipitation amounts down there across the southern portions of the state. Now, of course, those white areas, that's where above normal, below normal, and near normal probabilities are all just about equal. So basically a punt by the Climate Prediction Center. Now that August through October temperature outlook is pretty obviously on the warm side, not quite so increased with the odds in Oklahoma as the surrounding parts of the United States, but they are still increased odds of above normal temperatures for that August through October period. So kind of a mixed bag in predictions there on the precipitation and temperature outlooks. We need rainfall in those areas that most need it, central over through west central Oklahoma, up into the Panhandle and to the points east into north central Oklahoma. Of course, everybody needs rain, but those are the areas that are most in danger of seeing that drought intensify or develop. That's it for this time. We'll see you next time on the Mesonet Weather Report.
We're already a couple months into the cotton season, and Randy, where are we with Oklahoma cotton?
Well, Dave, we actually have probably the largest planted acres in the state since 1982, if we indeed believe the USDA National Ag Statistics Service numbers. They have us at 470,000 acres planted. That's way up from, what was it, let me cheat here, 215,000 planted in 2015, 305,000 planted last year, and 470,000 this year. So this is, if we indeed believe those numbers, we're sitting at about twice our, we would consider our long-term average.
And that's pretty amazing coming off of a couple years ago whenever there was barely any cotton planted in the state.
Well, our planted acres actually stayed up. It was our harvested acres that got clobbered. So, you know, I would say that we're probably somewhere in the neighborhood of about twice what we would normally see in terms of planted acres.
And the good thing is we actually have a little bit of moisture for the plants this year.
We are in fairly good shape in a lot of places. Of course, we probably have somewhere in the neighborhood of about 100,000 acres of irrigated cotton out of that 470, if we believe that number, and I keep saying that, right? So that means that we have a lot more dryland acres. And of course, as we get into late July and move on into August, of course, that precipitation for the dryland becomes extremely critical. And unfortunately, way too many times in my life, I've watched dryland cotton go through a lot of stress and be very disappointing at the end of the year, but we're going to be optimistic that this year we're going to be able to make some things happen.
And actually, there's water in the lake this year.
Yes, indeed. We really didn't have an opportunity to put it over the spillway like we've done for the past couple of years, but we are sitting right now, I believe, with the upper 70s in terms of percent in the Lake Lugert, and so that's outstanding. We should have enough water in the lake to pretty much make a very, very good crop this year, assuming we don't get into any other significant weather factors.
Where are we with the actual growth of the plant right now?
We really have a lot of variability out there. It depends on planting date. We had some cotton in the state that was planted probably early May. So this field right here was planted May the 10th. We actually had a lot of dry land that was planted probably as late as June 20th, depending upon which county. So we have the crops probably planted somewhere in the neighborhood of scattered out over about 30, 40 days for sure. Dry land, most of the time, a lot of growers, especially in Tillman County, they like to see that planting date pushed back a little bit later. As we go further north, maybe up into Ouachita County, they don't like to do that.
Now, we're on actually the west side of Altus right now, but you also have a field you want to show us on the east side.
Absolutely, yeah. Let's
go
go
look.
see that.
So Randy, here we are on the east side of Altus. What do we see in this field?
This particular field right here is another variety trial, large plot variety trial that we have with Abernathy Farms, Clint Abernathy and his sons.
And speaking of new acres, a lot of the new acres are going to be on dry land. This is also irrigated, but what are we seeing in the dryland cotton?
We really have a very significant mixed bag. As we look at where the rainfall came during the months of, say, April, May, and June, maybe the last 60 or 70 days, something like that, we really had some areas out in the northwest area, Beckham County and Greer County, Ouachita County, up in there. They actually had not as much rainfall up there. And so a lot of that cotton that was planted really kind of struggled to make a stand.
So there's always concern for boll weevils in the industry. What do you think we'll be finding here?
Dave, we have actually been what we would consider eradicated in the state of Oklahoma now for several years. Right. We have actually not trapped a boll weevil one in the state for several years. So, and I don't know, for those folks that don't understand what's going on with boll weevils, right. and you know, that is a very insidious pest. It's an invasive species from Mexico. Thank goodness in the 1990s we actually had a lot of technological breakthroughs. A trapping system was designed.
And actually one of the tools that you have to help spread the word about cotton news is the newsletter you guys produce.
That newsletter is also available on our websites, including the cotton.okstate.edu website.
Well, that's really interesting, and we'll actually put a link to all that information on our website, sunup.okstate.edu.
Daryl Peel, our livestock marketing specialist, joins us now. And Daryl, the USDA released some cattle reports, and one of those was the elusive mid-year cattle report. Talk a little bit about that.
Well, the mid-year cattle inventory report, we got it again this year. We didn't get it last year. We've gotten it 3 out of the last 5 years. So that makes it a little harder to interpret when you don't get a consistent data series there. But it seems to confirm what we've been expecting all along, that we're continuing to add to the cattle herd, broadly speaking, and specifically to the beef cow herd. If you look at that beef cow inventory estimate in this report and compare the July estimate to the previous January estimate, compared to what it has done historically, the ratio of those two time periods would suggest that we are still adding cows to the cow herd here in 2017.
What's some of the highlights that were in that report?
Well, beyond that, there's also a beef replacement heifer estimate. It's a little harder to interpret without a year-over-year comparison, but it would seem to suggest maybe that we're not saving as many heifers. There's some other data that kind of confirms that. Probably the most important and most readily usable number out of this report is the calf crop estimate for 2017. We do know what the 2016 calf crop was, so year over year, the calf crop was up 3.5%, which exactly matches the amount that the beef cow herd increased in 2016. So it all kind of goes together, it makes some sense. It means we've got more calves here in 2017. Feeder supplies are going to continue to be large through 2017 and on into 2018 for sure.
Moving to the monthly cattle on feed report, there was some news there. Talk a little bit about that.
Well, there was a fairly big surprise in this month's cattle on feed report. The placement number for June came in at 116% of last year. Trade was only expecting about 106%. And so that was a fair shock to the market, and the market has reacted pretty negatively to that following the report. If you look at, kind of what was going on there, the weight breakdown would confirm that most of that increase in placements was in lightweight cattle. And I think the explanation is pretty simple. Feedlots have made a lot of money in the last 3 months or so. They're very good about spending those profits on feeder cattle. And so they placed all the big cattle we were expecting them to place, and then they reached down into these lighter weight feeders and placed a bunch of them as well. So, it probably doesn't have terribly big implications for the rest of the year, but it scares the trade when you see those kind of big numbers come in suddenly.
So let's take a step back and just kind of look at like the big picture. What are these reports have, what's the impact that these reports will have on the markets for the next year?
I really don't think these reports fundamentally change my view of the market. We know that in general we're in a large and growing supply scenario. We've kind of confirmed that with the inventory report with a bigger calf crop. So feeder supplies are going to be big in 2017 on into 2018. That means that beef production is going to continue to grow on into 2019. We've been expecting that, and this really is just a confirmation of that, if anything. And even more short term, feeder and fed cattle markets have been very strong so far this year. And, I don't think we've really changed anything there. It hinges a lot for the rest of the year and on into next year what demand does. Demand has been very strong and has made these markets, allowed them to be bigger even with some supply pressure. And as long as that doesn't change, then we're in good shape.
All right, thanks a lot, Daryl. We'll see you next time.
These so-called dog days of summer are a reminder to beef cattle producers here in the Southern Plains about why we choose breeding seasons and therefore calving seasons when they occur. Data from many different experiment stations across the United States has shown us that heat stress can have a pretty detrimental effect on the reproductive capability of beef cattle. Here at Oklahoma State University a number of years ago, clear back in 1986, and a very interesting experiment was conducted with some beef cows that were naturally bred to bulls in a very comfortable environment, something in the 70-degree range. 8 days after they were bred, then these cows were put into 3 different environments. One, a very comfortable environment, 71 degrees around the clock, low humidity. Another one they called moderate heat stress. And in that situation, those cows were in an environment that was above 90 degrees around the clock, but low humidity. And then the third group, what they called high heat stress or severe heat stress, those cows were subjected to above 90 degrees 24 hours a day, plus high humidity. After 8 days of this, then the scientists went and harvested the cows, looked at those that were still pregnant, and the size of the conceptus. And by conceptus, I mean basically the weight of the little embryo, the fluids, and the membranes that keep that embryo growing. What they found was quite a difference in the number of cows that were still pregnant. In the case of those that were in that thermal neutral environment of 71 degrees, 83% of those cows were still bred. In the case of the cows that had the moderate heat stress, it was down to 64%, and it was even worse, as you might expect, in those with severe heat stress, at only 50% of them still had an embryo. Even as important or more important, when they looked at the weight of that conceptus, there was a substantial difference. They were much, much lighter in the case of those cows that were under heat stress, indicating to me that even though at 8 days of heat stress they may have still been alive, there's a good chance that some of those, if not many of them, wouldn't have survived. We hope that gives you a little better understanding of the environment's impact on reproduction of beef cows, and we certainly look forward to visiting with you next time on SUNUP's Cow-Calf Corner.
Kim Anderson, our crop marketing specialist, is here now. And Kim, prices have dropped about 80 cents in the last few weeks. Give us an idea of what's going on.
Well, we got that rally, and we got the rally on lower hard red winter wheat production in the United States. The spring wheat, or the U.S. spring wheat crop, significantly lower than we expected several months ago. You look around the world at the hard wheat producing countries, Australia down 30%. Actually, every country but Argentina was expected to be lower. But now the Russian crop, and they're the highest producer of the hard wheat, it looks like their production for 17 will be about the same as it was for 16, and that was a record crop. And I think that higher Russian crop is causing prices to go down. Plus, you know, prices, when you get bad news, they will swing like a pendulum, and I think they swung too high. They adjusted for that, and then they adjusted for the increase in Russian production, maybe Ukraine production, and I think that's had a psychological impact on our market, and they've taken it back down, and hopefully, like the pendulum, that has swung too far down and it'll come back up now.
What do you think will happen in the next few months then, looking ahead?
Well, now our marketing year trend is normally set in late August, September, and October. So when we start getting more information on this foreign crop, and remember the total foreign crop, hard wheat production for the world was expected to be about 13% lower, but all wheat in foreign production is expected to be about the same as last year. We've got to watch that coming in for the next few months. They're going to watch Australia and Argentina. I think it's going to remain to be volatile. Hopefully we'll gain from it some of this price back, but I don't think we'll go any lower, so I think we'll have slightly higher prices.
Okay, Kim, thanks a lot. Finally, today, we're celebrating the Robert M. Kerr Food and Agricultural Products Center as the team there marks its first 20 years of innovation and serving Oklahoma.
I think that the Food and Ag Products Center was launched with a tremendous vision of helping value-added food and agricultural companies across the state, but no one really had an idea how it actually would flesh out.
A lot of the things that he had thought about over years were based on how to bring more income back to the farm and farmer. He made a coalition, a rural coalition there in the legislature, and that coalition bought into his idea about value added in the state of Oklahoma. And so Dad thought, you know, what could we do possibly to bring some of that income back into the state of Oklahoma, and that was just to add the value to that product.
I just felt that that was important for us to have a center like that available to the farmer. And Senator Kerr and myself and several other board members went to the Senate and got approval to build that product center.
And as it's gone through these last 20 years, it's developed very successful programs in facility, in plant support, technical assistance, product development, training and education in facilities, as well as here.
The businesses that we've helped, again, they add new employees, it helps the economy. We've seen pretty consistent growth every single year, and I think there's been several thousands, probably 18,000 new jobs created over that period of time.
Most noteworthy is the food industry entrepreneurial business. That program, I don't think anybody would have ever guessed that that program itself would have echoed across America, and there's been numerous people from numerous states have come here and wondered how we did that and wanted to know what it took to be able to launch that program and take that information back to their own states so they could do the same.
I think it's a little bit of a hidden secret here in the state of Oklahoma that people just don't know that.
If we didn't have the center there, the state of Oklahoma would not be able to attract in to our state different industries that we've been able to help and help to grow.
So we've had a tremendous impact through the years and have developed the food industry in the state to compete with anybody, any other state in America.
To see more of the Food and Ag Product Center's impact on Oklahoma, as well as what the future holds, go to our website, sunup.okstate.edu. And a final programming note, SUNUP will be preempted for the next couple of weeks for OETA's August Fest. We look forward to seeing you again on August 19th.